Hello, welcome back to another episode of this political education discussion time, where we get to vent out our feelings, qualms about the world, any sort of discussions that we want to have politically, socially, or economically. Of course, we try to keep things Marxist around here, pretty much left, but that is through the analysis of dialectical materialism, of which when we understand the material condition, we can further discuss it. So in today's session, we're going to be talking about just my day. We spent the whole 3 hours in place called East Palo Alto here in the Bay Area, passing out flyers, passing out patches, stuff like this. Not this big though. Some of this stuff this small little patches for the people's propaganda and stuff like that. But today's topic, agitation propaganda, right, goes much more than just these little things, little art pieces that you can pass around. So agitation propaganda, or Agitprop, is you going into the community and agitating the people in the area. And the propaganda, of course, is to influence one's which way's understanding of the world, how stuff works. So propaganda is that influence. Agitation is getting in there, boots on the ground, and shaking the people, talking to people, getting in people's faces, instilling and planting the seeds of the new ideas that you want to help grow and propagate. So what we did specifically today was we went to 3 different places, a plaza, a few stores, and then another plaza, and then we went to every single storefront or like store, some wing stops, Mountain Mike's, your pretty much your big chain corporation jobs, where there was a Cardenas, there was a Panda Express. It's just like a regular American plaza. We go in there, and I don't have them on me. I left them in the car, but we just had big old QR code um, papers. We would explain what it is. Sometimes, if the place was especially bourgeois or if the managers were there, we kind of pulled back. So instead of saying we were with the PRP, People's Revolutionary Party, we fronted as just college students doing work for the community college, universities, maybe Stanford. We used Costaños community that was in the area. People would know about it. But what you're really trying to do with agitation propaganda is to get get in people's faces, but for the purpose of helping people, right? So we presented our survey, and the purpose of the survey, and this is why we did agitation propaganda this time around, to pump out these surveys, was to get a general understanding of the needs of the area. So you can obviously talk to people directly about their needs, um, but the survey allows people to take it on their own time. The survey, and it's a QR code on their phone. You can tell them to fill out as much as information as they want. Nothing is required on the survey. So agitation propaganda with this survey allowed us to pass around these flyers, these graphics, these patches with recognizable logos on them. So when we do happen to come about next week, the next month, they'll recognize us. And that's pretty much agitation propaganda as well. It's not just you passing around art, revolutionary thought, sharing ideas, stimulating the minds of the people in your community. It is also bringing that face, also being a familiar person in the area. So, and they also attach it, your face or your action, to a specific group or to a specific action. So you, the person, plus the action, uh, makes this understanding of, oh, that person does this. And especially if you're pushing out that revolutionary thought, or if you're actually, people see the face, people see the logo, and people see the understanding of what this means, they're going to put two and two together. They're going to be like, oh, they are that people doing work for the community, those people. So agitation propaganda as a whole doesn't have to be flyers or QR codes. Really, it could just be your art. You can make art and pass it around and distribute it to the public for people to have. And if that art has revolutionary messaging, if your art speaks to a class conscious side of the community, the world, that is, you're agitating if you're bringing it out, and it's propaganda, right? You see those old propaganda posters that used to be posted like World War II, Cold War times, where it's like communism bad, boo, like McCarthyism, Red Scare. That's propaganda. That's not so much agitation versus passive, which where we make the difference between agitation and passive propaganda. Passive propaganda is your billboards, is your stuff just posted on the side of a storefront, right? Your little flyers that you hang up on a community board, or something that you pass around but don't make engage. Like, agitation is an intentional effort. You actually want to get in front of the people's faces to make that change. So agitation propagandas, and then we already do this. I've been introduced to the term from the PRP, but it's actually something that GSUS has already been doing. So good job on us. We're pretty cool people around here. But essentially, how we do it as GSUS is we print flyers and graphics and fold zines and have physical media, stickers maybe, and then go to protests. Every time an individual from GSUS has those flyers and stuff and goes to a protest, they are participating in agitation propaganda, specifically for GSUS, of course, which is, takes upon a revolutionary identity. So we're always, talking about the owning the means of production. It's not just increases in petty wages, right? It is seeking that power at which the capitalist has taken away from us to attain it back. That's kind of our messaging around here. That's kind of what all our flyers and graphics say. Like when you strike, you don't just strike for a day, you strike for life. It is something that you embody to take in and understand that without this, solidarity, without this power, the people divided fall, right? So as united, as a striking base, in our propaganda going out there, everyone participates in this agitation. So even if you do speeches as well, same thing, agitation propaganda. It's basically you agitate, you shake the community, you are in people's faces with the stuff that you want to represent and plant the seeds and sow those seeds into their garden, their growing garden of ideas and thoughts and stuff. You are doing something very revolutionary. And last week we said, Rosa Luxemburg, there was a quote, the revolutionary thing you can do is just say what's happening, right? To observe the material condition, to extrapolate its meaning, share it, or as Hugh P. Newton would say, from another individual, you conceptualize, you think about it, then you articulate, you come up with how to make this known and an apparent phenomenon, and then you share it. You make people understand how this idea relates to you, relates to the material condition shared. So 3-step plan when it comes to, voicing out your concerns or understanding the world. You have to conceptualize it, think about it, grasp it in the mind, then you articulate it and share it. You tell people about it and ensure that there's a mutual understanding. So when it came to our agitation propaganda, when we're passing out flyers, QR codes, not zines, we didn't do zines today, patches and surveys, we had conversations with people. And it also helps. I don't speak no Spanish. No say no Spanish. Me, I don't do it. I know enough to get by, but I don't know it. We have comrades who do. So obviously, you'll get a better, success rate, or if you have, that removal of that language barrier. If someone does speak a certain language in this, certain area that only speaks a certain language, of course, you're gonna tap into a population or an area community that you wouldn't have otherwise. So, and that's all part of the community building, right? So even though I didn't speak a certain language, some of our comrades did, and they do. And so that also helped our outreach. So just having people, and it's about having skills, your different resources that you have available to you, right? Whether it be your ability to speak a different language, or maybe you have a van or some high occupancy vehicle that can transport a bunch of comrades in the area, right? So there are many different ways you can contribute to your community or to your effort. And when you're talking about GSUS specifically, there's many ways to contribute, right? Especially online, because, we're pretty predominantly an online force. Of course, we're always making that shift to the in-person. So we're not always like, strike, picket fence, better wages. And then you do stuff online and then that's it. Just at the end of the run we were doing today, we were talking about how some people, mostly the liberals, the LIBERLSs, watch out for them, will go show up to protests and, vote as hard as they can. And they feel liberated. They feel justice. They're like, wow, I've done my part today. I can go home and consume again and not feel bad about it. This I like to describe a phenomenon. It's like repent. It's like I want to say Christian nationalism, but it's like part of that Christianity, part of that religiousness to it, where it's like I've sinned. I feel like I've sinned. I will do my good part in society. I feel good now. I can consume again once more without feeling guilt. That's kind of how it feels like when individuals go to protest and do not engage any further activity to develop a community, right? Just you showing up like, hey, I have things to say about our government through this picket fence or this picket line. I've been out here and I'm going to go home now and then go to work tomorrow and then not think about what I did, right? Or expand upon it. So there are definitely layers and steps, progressions into activism. We're not saying that don't go to protest. That's a silly thing. We have a couple comrades out there right now at a protest, striking for the people. And it's just one of the many ways that you can engage in your community, right? If you can only have the capacity to protest, No one's saying you shouldn't protest, right? Or if you could show up to a place at a certain time with a bunch of comrades, a bunch of people that you know to agitate or even to just share, have a conversation. If that's all you can do, that's all you can do. And that's what we want you to do as much as you can, however you can. Because we're not forced, because GSUS is a special network. The more I work with PRP, I always contrast it against GSUS, and we really are something special. It's not quite like anything I ever seen or been a part of. And of course, observing other organizations, PSL, CPUSA, DSA, just different socialist leaning organizations are just a little bit different. No other organization has this type of, or, as we're a network, I wouldn't say we're an organization, but no organization has a type of decentralized aspect to it. This go-getter kind of attitude. This like, you're here, here's a pool of resources, go gung-ho, go do whatever you want. Grab a couple people to print out some flyers and pass them out. You have that ability to do that here, right? We provide everything free for you. And since it's a decentralized network, you're not going to pretty much find everything as easy. We try to make it as easy for you as possible to find these resources. The GSUS resources link tree is a very good resource that pretty much consolidates most of what we talk about. But there's always going to be different pockets of flyers, information, drives, proton drives, K drives, or any sort of, hub of information just out there in the network, which you can access and tap into, because it is all free. It's all free for us, the people, to utilize for our collective struggle, right? Whatever we produce outward for the public, socialized, it is free there for the people. So that's how people can print out zines instead of buying them from me, right? I'm not gatekeeping that process of, doing zines and stuff, just like Decolonization Coven. They have a zine library as well. You can print them out for free. Just download the design, and they even have instructions. We all have instructions on how to do that to help you, acclimate. You just need scissors, stapler, and then folding method. And then we teach you the folding methods. So it's all there inclusive for you. And that's the best part about being decentralized, right? And that helps with agitation propaganda, because the more material that you have, the better of a time you're going to agitate, especially with our propaganda that's left-leaning, more revolutionary, right? We say strike 3.5%, but it's always for a purpose. We never just leave it at that. Where it's like, guys, strike. And that's it. We always follow it up with, guys, strike, engage with your community. Guys, strike, learn up about your neighbor, have a conversation with your neighbor or something. Or it doesn't even have to be your neighbor. You can even go outside of your neighborhood if you're, feeling a little bit antisocial there. But, we're all on our different roads, all different, different paths and ways. Not everyone is going to be at this top-notch, super go-getter person. Some people just need to come out of their shells, or some people just need to find the ways that work for them. Not every which way is going to work for every single person, right? So that's another important reason why all of our stuff is free and the resources available for you, and we have that for you so that you can determine self-determination, how you can go about contributing to the group, because everyone does it in different ways, right? So it's not just the one way where you do it. Like, you have to print out this stuff and you have to have a script to go out and say GSU. It's nice and helpful to have a script, like, don't get me wrong, but if you do find a more comfortable way of saying the message, of displaying the solidarity, then of course you are welcome and you are encouraged to do so, because we want to procure an environment here at GSUS to ensure people's agitation with the community, this shaking and raising of the revolutionary consciousness comes natural to the individual, right? If you don't need a script, don't have a script. I usually never have a script. I always change up the stuff that I say every single time minutely, but you get the message across. That's kind of the essence of what we're doing, right? You can talk to someone's ear off, but if they don't get the message, you've lost them. I want to say time wasted. You've definitely planted a seed, but if the soil is bad, then the seed's not going to grow. So you can plant out seeds wherever, and that's pretty much what that Agitprop is. It's just you just going out, planting seeds. Don't know if the soil is good or bad, and then all the stuff that has the good soil will grow, and you'll know. All the stuff that has the bad soil won't grow, and you'll know. And you'll know which places to focus in on, so you have a plan of action for next time. So not everything's going to work out the first time, of course, right? This was our second or third time visiting the area, and we just now started doing the Agitprop. The first time we went in that area was purely just for surveying. Was just be like, we can set up a table here. We can go to businesses here. Let's avoid this area. They seem a little conservative, because you want to approach the people that are receptive to your propaganda. You don't want to go up to people who aren't receptive. You'll be like, they'll shut you down and you'll get nowhere. Remember, this also applies to the PRP and applies to most groups as well. 3.5 is not 100, and 3.5 is that rough number. So it's not an exact science. It's good science, but it's not an exact science. So, but 3.5 and 100 basically represents that you don't need everyone. If you needed everyone, nothing would really work. If you only need a tiny small percentage of the population to make that big change because it is intentional. Most people who live their lives now don't do it so intentionally. Of course, they go to work, but it's not like the intentionality of helping your community. You are, in essence, forced to go to work under your oppressive conditions in capitalism because you rely on it. Right, there is some sort of reliance on it that doesn't make it intentional anymore. It's a need at that point. So when you go out, do your job, or you go out to places where you are needed at, it's like there's less intentionality. That intentionality is what builds community, right? If it's like when you're forced to do something, you kind of don't want to do it. Like if someone tells you to do the dishes and you're already going to do the dishes, no, I don't want to do the dishes anymore. Got me fucked up. Don't do it. Don't let me do that. So it's kind of like that. You want to grab the people who are already receptive to your propaganda, especially this growing early phase, right? Because GSUS is still in its first phase. We're still gathering up a lot of people, right? Passing 300,000 was a great milestone, but we have like 10,700,000 more people to go, right? To get that to the 11 million point, closer to that 3.5% point. But it's all about making those connections now. It's all about making those relationships that we can nurture and cherish. Because when a relationship starts, it's not as solid, it's not as strong. Of course, you're just now starting to meet each other, talk to each other, build rapport, build a relationship, know who can do what, when and where, why, how, and all this stuff, all logistically, right? This is what you don't see during revolutionary movements. During revolutionary movements, you always see the big grand fight, or like it's people speaking up on podiums with millions of people in the background, or it's like people holding up flags and maybe a little bit of rioting, maybe a little bit of violence, or maybe those big old protest stuff. That's like all on the top end. That's like on the end side. The structure at which builds, founds, and sustains that big march, strike, revolution, or what happens right now. It's actually happening right now. It happened before a little bit last week too, a couple months ago, and in a couple months from now it'll happen. But it's all about having our small interactions, all about having a connection to build with someone in the community out which provides back to you. Then you can of course provide to the community back. A mutual giving situation. But when you notice when big old revolutions, like you think, oh, it's a big old fight, super high adrenaline, like yeah, raw, this is great. Majority of the time, revolutions end at the pinnacle, at the peak. So as the guillotines were coming down on those, the monarchs' heads in the French Revolution, the revolution was pretty much over. Individuals had who of the bourgeois background and of these liberal politics in the monarch days were already voted into parliament by the time the kings and queens' heads got chopped off. The logistics and legislation and litigation of all of the the complicated stuff that goes into making your laws, your liberal laws, and reforming monarchy. It was pretty much almost already done. Like you still had stuff to iron out after, but the big fight was already pretty much over because of not a slow or a like incremental change, but an intentional revolution that addresses contradictions of the current system. So the bourgeois of the monarch days addressed contradictions in the monarch, right, in this type of organization of society, this absolute rule, and questioned, hey, I'm a man, you're not some god, fuck you. That's basically what they said. And out of that, they did a revolution. Of course, adopting your liberal philosophies, your natural rights, your I think therefore I ams. He hath mixed his labor with, made it his. Stuff about property as well that you can conskew and construed into what it is now, ownership of property and such. And these ideas developed throughout the revolution, of course, as the monarchs lost their power through the collective organization of the bourgeois. Then all of a sudden you had these bourgeois states, which is why we call French Revolution, American Revolution, bourgeois revolutions. They were revolutions definitely, but from which era and from which conditions and social relations of production do they exist as? Are there still owners of production privatized, right? Or is production socialized, in which the benefit of the people reap that profit for the public benefit, right? That's socialism. But, oh yeah, imperial, and then colonialism as well, a big proponent of it. And then you can find colonialism as well inside of monarchy, but you find this much more apparent under capitalism, right, as opposed to feudalism. Feudalism, you didn't have an intricate system of social relations and relations to production. It was one guy, usually a king of courts, Like, I want this to happen. And you had a little small board, and you had an absolute hierarchy, right? The guy at top, king of courts, told everyone, top down, do everything. Now monarchs and hierarchies have gotten a little smaller, but they've gotten a little more manageable. And with the advances in the relations of production, the capitalist has been able to direct this autonomy and this production of value and this investment of labor into these self-sustaining oppressive structures that we exist today. Insufficient public transit, the complete and total reliance on cars in most big cities, metropolitan areas, right? That's just the automotive, right? Imagine other industries as well. If anyone's savvy, I'm an automotive person over here. But just looking at a certain section, you can see just how capitalists have, and this is to say that capitalists is inherently bad, raw. The capitalist does this out of the interest and extractions of surplus value, their profits. If the capitalists can make more money on a certain particular avenue, they're going to go do that. So what's more profitable? Having a public transit system, an efficient one that runs and gets people to where they're at, or you make people buy individual cars that cost a lot of money to own and repair, and have roads that take up way too much space so that you can't have businesses next to each other, to then you drive around to these wearing your car and the road of which paid by the people. That's like everything is not paid by the capitalist. The capitalist, that's not me. I'll take everything profits. Everything profits, that's me. Everything expenses, I'll fork that off to someone else. Well, the people can pay for that. Taxes pay for that, right? So this privatization and this appropriation of the privatized mode of production has allowed to grow, evolve, and manifest into what we see now. Insufficient public transit, everyone buying a goddamn car, unwalkable cities. It's insane. We tried walking around. Tolls, my goodness, street tax, as big like a highway tax. Yeah, those greedy. It's all capitalist greed. But understand why, right? Understand why you have your capitalist greed. It is because of that profit motive. The profit motive of which, right, drives this individual to rearrange production in such ways that which benefits the individual. And it is allowed and it is free for you to do that. Like, if you wanted to drop all this leftist stuff, you wanted to drop being a dirty communist bastard and be like, you know what, I'm gonna work for Uncle Sam, or I'm gonna do like bourgeois stuff. Totally can, but you just have to sacrifice your humanity out of it. You can make so much money. I tell this to some people, especially when individuals I really can't get to them. I lay it down like this. You can make as much money as you want. It's just dependent on how much you want to exploit your fellow person. That's how it is. You can make as much money as you want. It's not rocket science. It's not a hard thing to make money, right? You just have to be okay with exploiting your fellow people. That's it. If you can exploit people super good, super well, you make a lot of money, right? Your removal of empathy then comes in all of that profit. It's like the individual is like a bucket. You take the empathy part out, and then you put the profits in, and now you're a rich billionaire, and now you're super rich. You have like all this money. You're like, wow, how did I get this money? And then you look at a homeless person. What the hell's their problem? That's how that works. You remove empathy, profit comes in super easy. It's so, I don't know. There's no other easier way, because every time we talk to a small business owner, like a richer petite bourgeois business owner, or a business owner in general, we talk to a CEO, they're fucking psychopaths, and it is proven. And I know you read the articles. I know you've done some research. Psychopaths, CEOs, kind of a 1-to-1 thing. It's like, I'm not giving you exact percentage, but it's a very high percentage of CEOs found to be psychopaths, found to be lacking empathy, because in order to extract that much profit out of the people, you need to exploit so much. You need to exploit to the point where it's like, this is insane. That's crazy. Like billionaires, that's insane. You know what's the difference between $1 million and $1 billion? $1 billion. That's about $1 billion difference. A little small funny joke. But when we talk about the capitalist mode of production, don't be wondering, why is this? Why is that? We know exactly why. Right? Through dialectical materialism, through this understanding, you can see how the profit motive weaves its way into every single which way of walk of life. Even when people say, oh, I'm apolitical, I don't talk about politics, and all of a sudden politics affect them. I don't know. Can they still be apolitical? Sure. It's just their misunderstanding of how those politics affect them, right? So it is in this spaces and in the spaces that we talk, these more so left communist spaces where we have these open discussions about politics because it does affect us. We are affected by these decisions made by other people. Who would have thought decisions made by other people affect us? I would have never. So you talk to some people, it's like, hey, they're doing this stuff over there. That doesn't affect me, or does it? Right? How does people dying on the other side of the world affect me? Well, that's because that's our government doing that, and our government's also oppressing us. Right? They're damn near killing us too. Right? So everything does, we're all living this intertwined kind of, connected space, right? You can't avoid another person. And this goes into dependency. And I like having this conversation recently. I read somewhere in the deep interwebs, I can't remember where, but, people are inherently dependent. This is a good thing. This is a fine thing. This just happens. It's a phenomenon that occurs like gravity. Gravity occurs. People being dependent. That's a natural thing. It is how we address this dependency. Do we realize how society materializes and rearranges itself into the structures at which we place ourselves in part of production? So when we talk about dependency, right, easiest example, and this is where it actually comes from, this type of theory, this dependency theory, kind of. It's, you get a little bit of Buddha religion in here, but you also get Marxist-Leninism, communism inside of this idea of dependency. So when people are born, when every single person is born, you come out of the mother, the mom, the vagina. You come out of this space and you are dependent. Should you be left alone after your mother gave birth to you? Dead. Because all babies know how to do is just cry, maybe eat hot chip and lie on the ground, and then that's it. Babies know how to take care of themselves. As opposed to other animals who are like birds, like coming right out of the egg, like, I know exactly what to do. Their instincts are a lot different. Their brains are a lot smaller, so there's not a lot of development and growth. By the time some animals are born, their brain is there, like that's all they can do and function. But that's because of how the animal has been, has evolved in their conditions, experience, the evolution of which their tracks has laid. For humans, we need a lot more time here, right? The mother could not bear the child for that much longer. The baby needs to come out. Baby got too big, comes out, but the development period still occurs right here. So dependency is inherent to the individual, to the person living in society. People are dependent on one another, and to grow this in scale and to adapt this into current thinking or into our modern material condition, dependency. I need these glasses to see. I have not good vision, not terrible, bad vision, but they're not good. I can't drive without these. So I don't know how to make glasses. Right, I don't know how to do any of that. I could probably learn how to, but I still don't have the means of producing these glasses. That has been privatized. Damn them. But I am dependent on these to function in society, which also indirectly dependent on the people who made these with the machines and expertise at which created that. This jacket, same thing. I don't know how to make a jacket. Learning how to. I'm making clothes is quite the experience. But to this quality and to the function of this ways, and this is a heated jacket, by the way. Why am I wearing a heated jacket in California? Don't ask me. I like this jacket. But all of these processes and these labors and these productions, right, stimulate this idea of dependency. You need people to do stuff. Do you know how to grow your own food? No, you just know how to buy it at a store. Do you know how to make your own clothes? No, you just buy it at a store. Do you know how to fill up your own car? If you have a car. Probably. But where did that gas come from? How was it transported there? Where was it dumped? Where do they put the gas? They put the gas under in big tanks under the gas station, right? There's a lot to everything about life and society, which is just whoosh, throwing past us. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. I don't know what that is. I don't know what that is. I don't know what that is. And then, but I still live life. That's the best part of life, I think. Me personally, that's the best part of life. You don't know how anything works. You can just be completely oblivious about how anything works. You don't even know how to. I can't make an example right now, but you can still live. Oh my God, you can still do that living thing and experiencing life thing. Right? You don't have to understand a goddamn thing about any mode of production. You don't even have to be in theory or understand, theoretical frameworks of the material condition, your understandings of the world. You don't even have to have an idea of what philosophy is, or even, certain types of mathematics. You can just live life. That's like one of the best things I think ever, personally. The people who just live in their life, don't know anything. that they're just living life, like, So, but the capitalist mode of production appropriates this. People can't just live the life. People live life under a certain structure, and the structure of which provided by society, of which determined by either your mode. It is your mode of production that allows for people to maneuver within society. It's the distribution, the production, and the consumption of all the goods and services, and how that goes about defined by your mode of production. Capitalism privatizes your property and allows you to control and own that property and do as which you with or whatever you want with it. So with your property, you can profitize off of that, make people work on your land with the tools that you own, all of them supposedly, and you can churn a profit out of your workers, because the workers, they're just there to provide the labor. They're not there for any other special purpose or apply. But the big ideas, the big genius right there, that's bourgeois. That's to me the big billionaire. Are your ideas really all that great and grand if you didn't have the labor force behind you to actually produce at that level? I don't know, something to think about. But you have all of these capitalists, these bourgeois, these liberal individuals of the ideal mind and of the ideal sense of the material condition to think, yeah, I think, therefore I am. I can get this done. Me, myself, I just need a bunch of people to do it for me, but I can get it done. You rely on me while I exploit and tell 1,000 people to do the work for me. That's kind of how the billionaire works, right? It's like, it's that me, I. It's kind of that gross scheme, that gross individual scheme. Individualism itself is a big topic to discuss. But individualism, from its capitalist sense, from its mode of production, hinders production. Because inherently, at the workplace, you are an organization of labor. Like you have to talk to people and work with people to do stuff. You can't just not. Even if you communicate through a text or through a screen, you're still interacting with people. It's like true individualism is like a complete contradiction to the human experience of life, right? Because we talked about dependency. Where do you come from? Your mother, your mama, and if they didn't take care of you, you wouldn't be here. You were dependent on them. In the workplace, you're dependent on other people. You're dependent on the manager. You're dependent on the coworker. You're dependent on other people to help you get the job done. Or even if you're a seasoned individual who has done their work and job and can do everything by themselves, right? You still have that dependency of the other people, because now you're not No, you are representing the company when you work at a place. Like when you at employment or at a job, you forfeit some of your rights and then you represent the company. All right, it doesn't take just one person to make that company. Billionaires and CEOs will love to brag, hey, I made this all by myself. Me, I did that. I made this business. I'm a gigatrillionaire, super cool, badass. Everyone wants to be me. I made so much wealth. Stuff like that. Did the billionaire really just them? Like, did they do themselves? No. It is all the accumulation of the laborers and the laborers that have made that business, that enterprise, to what it is to be. Libraries are a great resource. You can find a bunch of free stuff at a library. And if you have a library card, sometimes in your areas, you can get free access to subscriptions to some things that you may need if they have it. So libraries and having a library card, super cool. That's a proletarian classic. Library cards, that's a public service right there. And they're free. FREE. At least they should be. If you have to pay for them, that's kind of sketch. Public libraries offer your library cards. You can do anything. You can do a lot with them. Like, you have a library card to go to establishment, they may even give you a discount. Don't quote me on that. But there's many things you can do with a library card, yeah. Capitalism, there's no such card like that. I don't know if you guys heard, probably have. Trump's gold citizenship card was like $5 million to get citizenship. Insanity. That's completely crazy. That's funny. That's horrible. That's absolutely atrocious, but that's funny. I was like, wow, I thought we're just to take money out of the politics, not put it in. Whatever. But yeah, agitation propaganda, capitalism, talking about philosophy and stuff like that. What a nice time. Oh, and another point about capitalism, and there's many points about capitalism. It's how the workplace goes, and we're going back into agitation propaganda as well. So in the workplace, you have your managers. Ooh, wow, your managers. Boo, scary. You're bourgeois aligning. Now, your direct supervisor or your manager, not your enemy. Contrary to popular belief, they're not your ops. They may pose as your ops, and they may actually be bitches and assholes to you, but that's just the conditions of their job. They are forced to be like that. And if they are genuinely like that, for the fishes, right? But understanding it from an economic standpoint, your supervisor and your direct boss, like the person who tells you your work schedule and stuff like that, not your economic op, not your political op, because they themselves are also in that position of, relying on that paycheck. Now, I'm not telling you to have sympathy for the boss that you hate. You don't need to do that. What I am saying is that that individual does exist with that oppression from the system, same as you. The individual relying on the paycheck, for if that paycheck goes away, they can no longer sustain the material condition. They can no longer pay their rent, pay their bills, get their food and whatnot and such. So we're all in the same bucket here. It just so happens that the bucket's filled up with some water and there's different steps and edges. Those buckets that kind of do that, like a little dropper thing. You have these different layers and stuff, and the capitalist just keeps filling water with whoosh, whoosh, more water, more oppression, take their rights away, knock down that protest, kick them out of here, send them back to them, more water, and all of a sudden people start drowning. Boo! But here's the interesting phenomena that capitalism brings about people, this hyper individualism, this liberal motive scheme. Instead of helping people to the next ledge, people will push down people to get to the next ledge. Not a crazy phenomenon. I know this happens. I'm pretty sure all of you recognize this in this capitalist system. It's this not getting a handout to pull up, but this grabbing of people to pull down so that they themselves can move up in the economic or social relation ladder, their positions in society. So this is just a little bit of Thorstein Veblen, since I just mentioned social relations again. When an individual engages in production, part of their engagement in production is of the aftermath of production, their paycheck, to increase their social status, their social relations. So you'll see this comment, and then the social relations of each class are exclusive to one another. So you wouldn't be flexing certain things in your community, in your class, in another class. So I hate to use bourgeois terms for classes. They're fake. It's complete nonsense. But when you talk about lower class flexing versus middle class flexing, it's a lot different. There's a lot of taboos. There's a lot of cultures built around this economic relations of production that people have that make the drive to do stuff. So not everyone is driven off of consumption. Most people are, I would say. A good chunk of people are driven off consumption. That's all, but people know and understand how to do. They work a job, they get stuff, they feel happy just a little bit for the time being, and then they go about living life again, doing their job, consuming, vacation every week or two every other year, yeah, right? So it is this consumption, at least Thorstein Veblen's theory, that drive people into these relations of production. So when people produce, right, however, which way they want to have or need to, right, out of sustenance, also there incurs not a duty or responsibility, but an acknowledgement of this social relation, this social status, where it's like, I make a lot of money and people are going to perceive me. It's like this antagonizing of the individual, this antagonizing of individualism. This, I would say, appropriation of individualism. It is this looking outwards or seeking or being or known to be perceived, that you have this like, is my social status, I'm okay, do people like me, like basically like, am I liked, am I well, you have these like these thoughts and stuff. The society of which we live in, because of capitalism, because of our privatized mode of production, has allowed people to think, the more money I get, the better I am perceived. So if I have more money, I do better. I'm better as a person in society. And that is pretty much the general thought that goes into, not say most kind of, just the general people who work. Now, of course, you'll have those individuals enlightened, and the entire phenomenon I'm describing is individuals who don't understand left kind of, communal type of economies, or, favor type of stuff. It's like breaking down that individualism, like this phenomena is completely removed from those schemes, but that's generally what you'll find in conservative type. So what I'm trying to describe here is like the common road, and it's like, think mid 1900s America, individualism, not at its peak. You still had some community and stuff, but consumption was at an all-time high, or it's still continuing to rise. Consumption is great, but consumption and the means to consume, super great for the people in terms of their capacity, like a vast amount of capacity to consume and produce around the mid 1900s. And that's pretty much the general consensus of when America's capitalist system did the best in terms of alleviating oppression, right? And allowing people to have that financial mobility and freedom in their lives individually, as the white picket fence family, as that non-communal, hyper-individualistic kind of core group to America's backbone economy. People like to consume, have stuff, when stuff was relatively cheap and the pay was relatively high in those times, people consumed a lot. And so that's where you get that scheme, that mode. Nowadays, can't really do that unless you are just completely so far removed from the economic struggles of the current world. You're always going to get some of this. So hold on, there's a little bit of class consciousness sneaking in there. It's just a tiny bit, and it always comes from, damn, my bills are too high, or it's like, damn, my rent's hella high, or it's like, damn, groceries are hella high. It's stuff like that where like people are questioning their material condition. Back in the mid 1900s, it wasn't that hard. You still had the oppressed and marginalized, but majority of the Americas, the white America, let me say it again, the white America was enjoying the fruits of their exploited labors. So consumption was high, and this phenomenon that I'm describing, this conspicuous consumption and all this like consuming stuff, the social status, is still prevalent today in most communities, in most of these privileged, these white, very affluent communities. People care about their consumption because there's no other problems in their scheme to worry about. Why worry about the economy if you're doing fine? You have other stuff to worry about, like what to wear on Saturday night. I don't know. So these problems are relative, but relative to the conditions that the individual experiences. If people don't have financial hardships, they're not going to be interested in financial discussion, right? Because once you're secure in particular areas of your life, of course you'll want to talk about it, but no longer talk about it as an issue, something to address, a contradiction addressed. It's not something to like look at, investigate, hone in on. It's more something to be like, yeah, that's something I do, or that's just something I have or can, or something that I wish not to be investigated. When an individual is complacent within the system, they will comply. That compliance, of course, moves forward that status quo of which we are trying to fight. Because I assume, I'm not trying to point anyone out, we are struggling financially pretty much, right? We paycheck to paycheck, that's struggling financially. You don't have like your 6 months, or what did they say, 9 months of savings of all your bills like saved up. Yeah, you're struggling a lot. So and that's normal. At least for me, with the people I talk to and know, that's the normal run of the scheme. Because I talk to a lot of poor people. As a fellow poor, hi, hello. But it is that paycheck to paycheck. It is that financial stress that people undergo. That builds, I would say, this class solidarity. It's like, hey, you're a fellow poor. I'm a fellow poor. I know your struggles, but it is that base. It doesn't have to be your fellow poor. It could be any class, really. It could be any sort of identity group. It is knowing the struggle. It's like it's having that relation, and that's what building relationships, knowing the struggle of the people. And that's kind of what we did for the surveys today. We needed to know the struggles of East Palo Alto, the residents there, the workers, even if they didn't work or live in the area. Like, if they worked we went to Panda Express, maybe they don't live in East Palo Alto, maybe they live somewhere else. We still want to hear the concerns and the needs of the people, because that is who we are addressing. We don't have an action plan until we know what the needs are of the people. So that's why we did those surveys. And that is how we get to know what people's needs. Like, oh, we know your rent's high. We know your grocery prices are high. We know all this stuff is unbearable to live in. And then we ask about smaller needs, or needs that aren't addressed immediately. Some people may have different problems that they have that aren't being talked about. We provide those surveys so that people can express that. It's not like a big issue. Rent, groceries, big issues. Gas is still expensive around here. It's like some other issues that may not be talked about. We provide that survey so people can have the opportunity to express that. And when you give people the time and you give people the humanity and you acknowledge them as a person, you generally get a nicer feedback. You get generally a nicer conversation, because now people are being talked to as if they are people, of which they are. People are people, contrary, people are people. But it is acknowledging that people are people, to which gets you into that door, gets your foot into that conversation, be like, hey, I'm organizing with so and so, such and such, right? I'll tell you right now, it's harder. The PRP isn't really as established, or the PRP doesn't really have a strong message, because it is a communist organization, and you can't just be spewing around communism out here. I'm a communist. You're not gonna get shot, but you're gonna get booed out. Boo. That guy likes Stalin. Boo, boo him, boo that guy. That guy likes Lenin. He likes the Russians. He's an evil villain. Boo. Organizing with the general strike super easy. I love when I go out and tell people, hey, I'm with the general strike. It's like, oh my god, how are you? it's a lot easier to pitch because strikes generally, of course, and they are inherently nonviolent. So it's much easier to pitch to people. When you're out spearing communism to people, it's like so hard. So we had to do a little fronts. Sometimes we had to pose as college students or whatnot. I always try to say we're the PRP of California, but don't worry about the name. It's long renew. Worry about what we have to offer you or what we have, a connection to build. So you can establish who you are and what you are. I'll say it's much easier as a GSUS representative to get to talk to people because people are much more receptive to a strike. And people have a general understanding of what a strike is already. And then we mold that definition through our conversation because the general bourgeois strike is not the strike that we're conducting. We're not conducting a bourgeois, a systemically upholding strike that is like pro-reactionary union. We're pro-revolutionary union. And unions that are reactionary bedside with companies like UPS, like the fucking Teamsters. I'm not saying Teamsters are bad. I love my Teamster union brothers. But pretty much a reactionary union bedside with these companies, of which offer still better wages and conditions for the workers, but still lean in onto that corporate side where it's like, hey, we're negotiating, but keep us in the loop. Make sure that we know what's going on. We're buddy, right? So the unions will never outright say that they are bedside, and majority of the time they're not. It just so happens that the ways and actions at which these unions go about are not revolutionary. They are compliant and complicit, of which most importantly we are not trying to do. So reactionary unions, pretty cool. They're still a union. They still provide better wages. The unions still provide your better work conditions and such. But it just so happens that it's not done in a revolutionary way, of which GSUS tries to, of course, aspire to be, of which we're establishing ourselves to be a revolutionary force, a force at which contends and is marked as some sort of threat to the state. Now that's a big compliment. If the General Strike US were to be named an enemy of the state, or we were receiving slander and propaganda against us, that's a win in the book. That's like we've done something right. If the government hates us, if the government hates us, we did something right. And that's kind of what I aspire to be. Government hates me, I'll still live longer. I don't want to die, but I could die happy, knowing that the state that oppresses people hates us. So if the state that hates us oppresses people, that means we're an ally of the people because the mutual hating. So, oh yeah. So reactionary unions do not engage in that philosophy or that understanding of the political and economic theory of owning the means of production. Reactionary unions maintain the dynamic between boss and employee, employer and employee. They maintain this relationship. There's no dismantling, abolishment, or change in the relationship of production. Reactionary unions maintain the boss must be there and the employee must be there. It just so happens that the employee is given better wages. That's the reactionary union. A revolutionary union, or as we would say, a worker council. That's one of the things PRP wants to establish in some of these workplaces or worker councils, and then apartment complexes, tenant councils or tenant unions. So which operates the same way as unions, like traditional workplace unions. It's where the tenants of an apartment building or complex go on a rent strike. Woo, 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 we're not paying your rent. And especially if it's a building under maintained, that's so easy from what I've read to get demands from a tenant or from a landlord. Like landlords are fucking the scummiest of scum. Like landlords, the laziest species of shits out there. So doing tenant unions and doing rent strikes, super cool, super awesome, right? So I come to you as a representative of GSUS and as a representative of the PRP. Whatever the PRP will does, and I already told them this. I already told them I'm dual organizing. Right? So whatever I take from there, I'm going to try and apply over here. And that goes into that establishing of tenants and worker councils. Unions we can still do. We can still partner with unions and such, but they're not aiming for the means of production. That's what we're here for. But for tenants, tenant councils, the eventual move is to have the tenants own the building they live in. Right? Even if some of them want to move out, you'll still have people still trying to find housing. We can provide that housing at a reduced rate, of which only covers the mortgage, some bills, some electricity and water and stuff like that, utilities and such, but nothing that would exert a profit excess. So a tenants unit, eventually the goal is to take the property from the landlord and give it to the tenants. Because why the fuck are you paying the landlord when the landlord turns around and pays the bank? It's an unnecessary middleman. Why doesn't just the tenants pay the bank directly? That's because of private property. That's the private property. Boo. This Halloween I'm dressing up as private property. Super scary. but that is that managing and handling and the ownership of that private property. So why can't tenants just pay the bank directly? Because there's a piece of paper in someone's desk or a file on someone's computer that says, no, that person owns that. And they can't do anything about it because it's recognized. And you get more of this force, more of this from the recognition of the state. And I always have to say this when it comes to private property. Private property is insured because it is recognized by the state of which has a military to enforce that recognition. So that's where we get that. That's where we can just storm into Walmarts, have big riots. The fucking pigs are gonna show up. Like, don't do nothing stupid. The pigs are gonna show up and do something about it. That's dumb action. You don't want to be storing up, doing riots. That's that violent, ignorant, reactionary revolution where it's like you're gonna do stuff, cause a panic. There was another case that Huey P. Newton talked about, throwing Molotov, reactionary violence. Huey P. Newton noticed the Molotov cocktails being thrown around, like the violence against the state, and all that caused the state to do was justify their violence against the black liberation groups, against those black populations. Because if they're doing violence, they'll just do more violence back. But if you do conduct your movement in a non-violent way, it's kind of hard to justify violence against. Now, I know we've seen the college protests last year, a couple years ago. No, that was last year. No, that was a couple years. No, that was last year. Those college protests of which the police came in anyways to just sweep them out. You'll notice our state's getting a little bit shaky right now. And of course, the state right now is at its point. I think they're doing a rug pull. Me personally, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. But the state right now looks like it's doing this insane rug pull against the people to extract as much profit and value as quick as possible to then shut it down, gatekeep it. It's like, no, it's all of our wealth. This is all of ours. Like, we're not giving it back. Trickle down economics. Oh my God, someone had a funny euphemism for trickle down economics. Can't remember it, but it's like that. No more trickle down. How we tricked you, and everyone's like, I know. I know that shit was fake. You don't have to tell me anything. But it does look like 6 p.m. I know we started a little late. Pardon me. Next week will be normal, okay? But that pretty much concludes that agitation propaganda. Just understanding what it goes into. So it's not just zines, flyers. It could be actual art, maybe necklaces, jewelry that you may make that has a class conscious or revolutionary message embedded within it. So hammers and sickles are super cool. Watch. The hammer and sickle headband. I can't wear this out in public. I'm gonna get like this is a lot more incognito, right? A little stylish. This I can't wear out. This is like my sleeping mask. This is like my bed mask, my hair. But yeah, don't wear this out. You'll get you won't get stoned, but you'll get some dirty looks. But this is much more incognito. But if I were to sell this and have this or not even sell it, just give it out to people, agitation propaganda. That's a form of it. Art, media, newspaper, anything that can get physical stuff into the hands of people, and you're in front of that person saying, hey, communism good. For their whole life they heard communism bad. For the first time in their life they're saying, hey, communism good. That's agitation propaganda. So agitation propaganda, of course, comes from this need from the capitalist system not doing what it's supposed to do, societal benefit, and of course tearing down the oppressive structures and system that keep these marginalized groups marginalized, underrepresented, and disenfranchised. That's out of me. I'm done now. Take a little drink. If you have any questions, please type them out. If you want to have a conversation right now, come off mute. I will drink some water. Thank you so much for joining us. If you want to stay, hang out. I'll be here a couple minutes after. If no one has any questions, but yeah. Thank you so much. If you need to leave, get out of here. I'm not holding you. We're all recording this. It'll be up on YouTube on Friday. So we're all good. Thank you so much for joining, for hearing me out.
So I had a comment, but I put it into chat. I think it's fine in chat. I'll just say that was absolutely awesome. Thanks.
Cool. Thank you. Oh, wow. Open source gone. There's no open source stuff anymore. No free software. The zine software that I use is a free software. Oh yeah, walkable cities. Oh yeah.
So the
Well,
advice is don't feel bad about what you're using. This is advice to
yeah.
software developers and not to users. As users, we
Mhm,
want to be aware of it and create pressure on developers. Hey,
mhm,
I heard you make software. Have you thought about licensing beyond like, oh, MIT is easy to understand? That's the foible that kind of traps people in. Oh,
mhm,
I understand the MIT license. Well, yeah, but do you understand why it's worth 350 words and 3 generations of the new public license to
mhm.
it, why spend so much blood and treasure on that in order to be able to give something away? It's a question to ask, right?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, especially with that digital creation, it's like it's a lot easier to share, but it's also easier to gatekeep as well.
Yeah, that's right. Open source, you can like I don't know, there's like the forking spirit even of itself is kind of a deunionizing kind of thing, right? Whereas
Hmm.
free software, maybe Stallman's project is terrible. Maybe for you, it's about free BSD. There's another totally sister organization with exactly the same principles
Hmm.
fighting for
Yeah.
the same thing. There's ways to organize if you're not in with some tribe. I, yeah. I mean, I knew we were going to agree. I didn't want to rant on it. That's why I was going to refer to like just the little thing I wrote, like
Yeah.
just really good spirit here.
Hmm. Yeah, good stuff here. Yeah, we're all here talking about anything. And politics to me is just a materialization of your philosophy. So whatever you think, whatever comes out, that's your politic, especially if it's about something specific. And generally, most of the time, the human politic is a good politic. Where it's like, hey, why are you gatekeeping? Why are you not sharing this? Like, sharing is that core tenet of being a human. It's like, hey, I have an excess of this. Why don't you have this? We said it last week. I'm gonna do a little bit. Describe what I said. We said last week too. There was this TikTok trend going on. Two parents and a kid were sitting down. They had napkins over in front of them. The kid under the napkin had two cookies. The one of the parents had one. The one of the parents had the other. When they went 1, 2, 3, how many cookies do you have? They're like, oh, I have two, but mom or dad, you don't have one. Or like, mom, you don't have one. And the baby instinctually, and this is where you get that humans are naturally greedy. Are they? When the kid said, you know what? Here you go, mom or dad. Here you go, parent who loves me. I will give you one of my cookies. And the kids who go extra, who take the extra step, put the napkins back over so that the parents can experience that, have that experience where, oh my God, I have a cookie now. Love seeing those. I like that one. Cool, yeah. All power to the people. Hoarding resources is trained. It is trained. It is a trained thing. It is a learned behavior to hoard resources. It is also an externally, the material condition teaches you that too. If your material condition does not provide enough for you, you are going to learn that you do not have enough provisions for you. You're going to hoard and keep in fear of that non having of. So this manufactured scarcity builds that hoarding of resources. It's completely manufactured. We have enough houses and resources to feed and house everybody twice over. That's out of That's it. These sessions are recorded. They'll be up on YouTube. So yeah, share them. Have a good time. All power to the people. All power, comrades. PRP, up and coming, cool, super cool, hit Marxist Leninists. Not like any other. We're not like every other communist party. A CPUS ain't got nothing on us. No. So all power to the people. Love, spirits. Have a good time. Good vibes. Yeah.
Thank you.
Of course. Thank you. So, typing stuff. Of course. Take care. Stay safe. This is out of me. I never know when to stop. So I'm just going to go.